Thank you, sir. Architect G. Shankar is a name familiar and dear, especially in Kerala, to all those who have loved and to all those who would love building a home. The kind of home that is simple, sublime, and sustainable. His commitment and passion in building homes that are nature-friendly, cost-effective, and yet beautiful have resulted in his creation of the concept green architecture. Inspired by Laurie Baker, Shankar's genius at meeting his clients' resources with their dreams earned him the title People's Architect. According to Shankar, his most satisfying works have been the homes he built for the fisher folk. This well sums up his professional commitment, social responsibility, and passion for innovation. G. Shankar is the founder and chairman of the Habitat Technology Group. In 2011, he was awarded Padma Shri by the Government of India and is the first recipient of the Laurie Baker Award by the Government of Kerala for his outstanding contribution to low-cost housing technologies. He has made notable contributions towards post-disaster relief and reconstruction as the consultant for UN disaster mitigation at Sri Lanka and Maldives, UNEP Palestine rehabilitation, and the Government of India on Sri Lankan rehabilitation. Architect Shankar is the chairman of the National Committee to frame disaster mitigant design specifications to the Government of India, the International Director of Architects South Frontier based in France, and the President of the South Asian Coalition of Community Architects. Mr. Shankar was also architectural consultant to various projects of Rajiv Gandhi Foundation, Architecture and Development France, and BGS Germany. Shankar holds a bachelor's degree in architecture from the College of Engineering, Thiruvananthapuram, and an MS from Birmingham School of Architecture, UK, for which he secured the first rank. He is visiting faculty to Lund University, Sweden, and Central Philippine University. Mr. Shankar has been panelist speaker at World Reconstruction Conference at Washington, D.C., Global Energy Parliament at Geneva, Habitat 2 at Istanbul, UN General Assembly at New York, Civicus Conferences in Manila, ISTR Conference in Dublin, Asian Coalition of Community Architects, Chiang Mai, Thailand, etc. Shankar sir, may I call upon you to inaugurate the lecture series and deliver the inaugural address. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together to welcome Sri Shankar to the dais.
Professor S.K. Sharma, my young friend Prithviraj, Governor sir, dignitaries of the dais, and my dear friends. It's an august opportunity for me to talk about something which is very close to my heart on this auspicious day of where we are talking about sustainability, sustainable development, saving the resources to save the globe, etc., etc. Every year on June 5th, we sort of celebrate this day to bring into sharp focus some of the concerns that we have, that we need to pursue. This year, we are talking about a very key subject of saving our very precious resources. What are we talking about? We are talking about a population of a figure that's now crossing 7 billion people. All the 7 billion people, they have names, they have identities, they also have dreams. So we are talking about 7 billion people on this earth today trying to dream about a world that's going to sustain the human race. Today, we are trying to share that dream. Some of you might remember the words that the great Martin Luther King once spoke about a black man probably reaching to the presidency of United States. He said, he started his speech by making the statement that I have a dream. I have a dream. It's very important, it's very critical that each one of you pursues a dream. And the world is going through very critical challenges. I won't call the set of problems as, I'll just term it as challenges instead of naming it as a problem. Challenges can always be overcome. Challenges always can be met. Challenges always can be tackled, provided you have a will to overcome. Face the challenge, tackle it, overcome it, and then go forward. So together, with all the similar-minded people who share the same dream, let us make a solemn pledge that we will save the precious resources that are getting diminished very fast by kind of, are we exploiting the kind of resources that we have, the precious resources that we have? Unfortunately, I belong to a fraternity which talks about exploitation of natural resources in a very, very bad way. Let me put forth some statistics before you. 32% of the fresh water intake in Kerala, in India, in this country, 32%, that's a huge percentage. 32% of fresh water intake in this country is being used for construction purposes. 60% of the wood harvest goes for construction purposes. And we are continually using energy-intensive materials like cement and steel in a completely shameful manner. We are all using all these materials which are precious. Why I am talking against cement and steel are because of a particular reason. Cement and steel consumes eats up a lot of energy which is vital for a nation's growth and nation's development. For these two reasons, let us at least today make a solemn pledge that whatever resources that we have, can we move on to that kind of premises? Can we look at the beautiful building material vocabulary that we have in this country, in this particular state? We have a plethora. We have a huge vocabulary of beautiful building materials. Our basic earth, reddish earth that we have, is such a beautiful building material. As an architect, it's a pleasure, it's a joy to work with such building materials like bamboo, lime, things like that. It's not a romantic notion. This is one thing that I want to put forth very clearly. People think that when you talk about bamboo, when you're talking about mud, you're kind of romanticize the material. No, not at all. I believe in mud because it's a very sustainable material. You look at it. It's a no-cost material. You can get it from your plot, wherever you're going to build the house. It's a no-cost material. It doesn't go through a process. When it doesn't go through a process, you are talking about an energy-efficient material. You don't have to impart skills from Western countries. Our own masons, our own laborers, they know how to make beautiful expressions in these kind of materials. We are talking about local capacity building. We are talking about a locally available material. We are also talking about addressing local and vernacular style of architecture. Local and local. This should be the mantra that we should hold very close to our heart. When you talk about local things, you are talking about sustainability. You are talking about sustainability with conviction. That is that's going to make a difference in the coming days. Having said that, as an architect, today I really wish to talk about something which is very close to my heart again, about simple architecture. Architecture without pretensions. Can we talk about architecture which is value-based? That's exactly what I wish to do today. Can you start the presentation, please? Go ahead. Go ahead. Today I'm going to talk about simple architecture which is based on honesty, truthfulness, and which talks about people-friendliness, which is very critical. When you are talking about architecture in Kerala, it should suit not only our physical climate, but it should suit the social climate of Kerala. That's exactly where, as an architect, I've gone to traditional fishermen folk, I've gone to Adivasis, I've gone to people living in the forest, I've gone to poorer section society, because they are the people who never get a service of an architect. They also share the space, they also share the earth, they also share the resources, but they are left on the margins. As architects, as people who are responsible for the built-up environment, can we put them back into the mainstream? That's a concern that every builder in this particular group, every engineer in this particular group, every architect in this particular group, everybody who loves this Mother Earth should share and take it forward. Carry on. I'm carrying an article which was written by Professor S.K. Das way back in, that's there, you can take it, that copy is there, which he wrote 27 years back in a magazine called Architectural Designer, where I just looking at it today, I got a photocopy with me. Professor Das, you can kindly look at that little paper that I'm kind of carrying, which is actually published in 1998 in a magazine called Architecture Plus Designer, where he's also talking about the same concerns. 28 years after, I'm meeting this person, and we are sharing this space, It's a magical moment for people like me. The man who actually gave me a lot of inputs, insights into the gravity of the problem, the intensity of the problem, the dynamics of the problem, entire paradigm of sustainability. That's what he has written about in that article. And that has actually given me such precious inputs into my own thinking. These are statements that I wish you reflect on this. Can we go out of these monetary systems? Hassan Fatih, as you might know, is the father of pro-poor architect. He's an Egyptian architect who really paved way for what we call a sustainable housing in the world. And this idea is surprisingly there in the article that was written by S.K. Das. Can we go out of the monetary systems? We are always thinking about money as a resource to build this, big gap and things like that. Can we go out of the monetary system and then think about sustainability in a completely different paradigm? Yeah. Now, looking at the housing situation in India, what are we talking about? We are talking about nearly 70 million families. 70 million families will make it 7 crores. Put an average Indian household of 5 people, we are talking about staggering numbers. Out of 100 crore people, India's population 120 crores, we are actually talking about nearly 25 to 30 crores of people without adequate shelter. When I talk about adequacy of shelter, to me, an adequate house should have a clean cooking space and a clean toilet. When the enumerators come to your house, and even if you have a bed sheet over that, they will count you, they will put you in the list of housed people. They're so senseless. People without access to potable water, without access to clean sanitation, how can you call them house people? My dear friends, we are discussing about sustainability today. Think about these people. Almost 70 million, 3.54 crores of family into 5 is around 20 crores of people. Names and dreams like that, who are living on the pavements without access to potable water and clean sanitation. This figure should actually disturb you, isn't it? This figure, the figure that I am talking about, 25 crores of people, 250 millions of people in this country. We are talking about post-independence period, 70 years after 80, almost 75 years after independence. And what are we talking? We are still talking about staggering numbers of houseless people. Now, do we have the resources to bridge this gap? Unfortunately, the government doesn't have the will and the resources to bridge this gap. Suppose in our own little ward where we are talking now, we are talking about building 500 houses, probably to bridge this gap. 500 houses in this little panchayat, that will probably wipe out the housing deficit in this particular place. 500, even if you build a 300 to 400 square feet house, what are we talking about? 5 loads of rubble? 5 loads of stones? 5 into the numbers that I'm talking, 500, will make it 2,500 lorry loads of stone in this particular locality. So get it multiplied. Everything that you buy, you are talking about cement, you are talking about sand, you are talking about stones, you are talking about steel, you are talking about some kind of wood, you are talking about steel windows, whatever it is. You are talking about consumption of materials for construction. Do we have such a big load of materials in this country? When you talk about these numbers, it will appear to you that the problem is almost insurmountable, isn't it? It goes beyond your comprehension, it goes beyond the statistics. But as architects, people who are living on this earth, can we stare at this reality? Can we just stare, ignore it and walk away? We cannot, my dear friends, we cannot, my dear friends. As responsible citizens of this earth, Mother Earth, we cannot shy away from this grim reality. So every action as an architect, as an engineer, as a builder, you should keep this grim reality into this thing. And life becomes very different. Yeah. I just wanted to show you this picture because this is a reality where we are talking about the frightening intensity and pace of urbanization. The sad part is that the intensity of pace of urbanization is getting more intense in countries where resources are not there. It's happening in third world countries at an alarming rate. Forget about the first world countries, forget about the developed countries per se. Look at the third world. The rate of urbanization in the poorest part in this world, sub-Saharan Africa, You must have heard of a few countries like Eritrea, Ethiopia, those countries are the place where, those countries are located, sub-Saharan Africa. You are talking about an urbanization percentage of 90% urbanization, which is staggering. It's staggering. It's kind of overwhelming, the kind of urbanization that is taking place. What is so staggering about it? Why should it disappoint you? Why should it scare you? Why should it frighten you? Because it puts intense pressures on the kind of resources. The poor people. So I was involved in a local initiative to house the houseless tribals, Dalits, in Adivasis, in a place called Aralam. When I went in for the first time, I saw an old Adivasi man climbing up a rubber tree and trying to sap the latex from one of the topmost branches. I said, what are you doing? Rubber trees need to be cut at a particular portion. It has to be cut at a particular time. You have to be very careful about that. If you keep on cutting the rubber tree daily, then the latex production will come down. You need to do it sustainably. I just asked him, and he doesn't know about it. He is a very poor guy who's trying to take out aspects, latex that is there in the rubber tree and try to eke out a living. This is a social reality which you should see. This is happening everywhere. Today morning, actually I woke up in a suburban area, 180 kilometers from here, in a place called Idappal. And I was just walking up to the junction to get a cup of tea. And I was looking at the things happening. Hundreds of migrant laborers who are trying to get some kind of a transport right there in the junction. 6 o'clock in the morning, there were 1,000 migrant laborers. It's not an exaggeration at all. 1,000 migrant laborers staying huddled at the junction, Idappal. I was looking at huge hoardings happening. Big jewelry shops, all huge, these things. People trying to sell dreams. And here is a group of people, 1,000 of them, trying to huddle together, get some warmth between themselves, and trying to eke out a living. The pace and intensity of urbanization cannot be wished away. Can we wish away this reality which is happening? It's a process that's happening. We cannot wish away urbanization that's happening. This is very interesting, how to make the dynamics of urbanization, how to make the whole paradox of the various stakeholders in the process work together towards a sustainable future is a challenge. It's a challenge that we as responsible professionals, responsible citizens of the earth should take forward. I can never say that urbanization is a negative, it cannot be wished away. It's not a negative phenomenon at all. Yeah. This again another question that I want to pose before you. We are talking about sustainability endlessly. Can we look at poverty as a very positive phenomenon? Poverty, not as a negative phenomenon, but as a very positive phenomenon. Why do I call it very positive? Don't you think that is poverty that ignites your dreams? It's poverty that ignites your dreams. It's the poverty that can push you forward. Can it be a big catalyst in augmenting all your dreams and trying to push these people, the whole, Janta people forward? It can be. In India, in Kerala, slums are called chedis in Malayalam and slums in English. They are always islands of misery, islands of hopelessness, islands of dirt, islands of filth. Elsewhere in the world, in Latin America, slums are called favelas. Favelas are islands of hope, not islands of despair. Favelas are an integral part of the urban fabric. Can we look at these kind of poor people settlement, mainstream it? I just talked to Mr. S.K. Das. We share the same concerns about the Dharavi development, where so-called PPPP kind of, tie-ups are coming in, private, public partnerships are coming in. But I'm actually involved in a huge project in Sri Lanka, where Indian government is trying to build up 50,000 houses. Big parcels of land is being sold to private interests. In Colombo, they are building up 36, 40-story apartment blocks for the slum dwellers. The same thing is happening in Dharavi, the largest slum in the world, in Mumbai. This is a kind of model. As a social activist, we cannot share at all. Now, are they in contradiction? Poverty, environment, and development. Can we bring? This is an open-ended question to you. Can we have some linkages between poverty, positive linkages, bridges, connectivities between poverty, environment, and development? As social activists, as environmental activists, whenever we try to find green reasons for not taking a project forward, we are termed as anti-national. We are termed as anti-development professionals. My dear friends, for the entire fraternity of environmentalists in this particular state, let me make this clear statement. We are not for a moment, we are not against development. But development means sustainable development. When we talk about road development, we should also talk about development of facilities for the pedestrian. Let us not look at the vehicles alone. Let us also look at the major stakeholders of urban mobility. Who are them? The pedestrians. 60% of the people moving in this particular city, Kochi, they are pedestrians. They don't own a vehicle. When you talk about road development, we think about only vehicular movement. We don't think about the other things at all. So when we talk about environmental intervention, green interventions, we talk about sustainability. We want places for the disabled persons to safely cross the road. We want old people and the elderly people to walk around safely. We are talking about safe passages. We want safe roads. Safety and security should be at the hem of things. And that is why we are continuing this struggle. We are not for a moment against development. But all this time, unless we have the sustainability factor ingrained into the action plan, we are not going to go forward. The world is not going to go forward unless we have an ingrained factor of sustainability. Yeah. I do not dwell much on this, but these are all concerns. We as architects and engineers, we realized that there is a huge energy crisis in this world when our own lights went off. When you started to get blackout periods, when the government switched off our lights for a particular period of time, 30 minutes, we started to curse the government, curse the electricity minister, the electricity board, and the rest of it. All because of energy consumption patterns and the construction industry. That's what should pain people like me. All activities connected to construction industries are all energy intensive processes. Unless we move away from these kinds of processes. That's why I've been talking continuously against cement, continuously against steel and things like that. Because it eats up a lot of, we are still talking about outdated processes, it eats up a lot of energy and things like that. I need not have to talk about climate change. The climate is changing everywhere. This year, the kind of harsh summers that we had, it was terrible. And each one of us know that temperature is rising at an alarming rate. It's becoming impossible to live in houses, live in a place where you have a ceiling fan and things like that. Water is becoming more precious. There's a time when we used to very happily say that water, water everywhere. But the poet added, not a drop to drink. Water, water everywhere, but not a drop to drink. All the 44 rivers in this particular state, they are on deathbed. All the 44 rivers, where is the potable water going to come from? All the rivers are on deathbed. All the rivers, all the other water sources that we have, they're all getting mutilated. They're all getting badly filled up with filth. All getting filled up. Where is the fresh water going to come from? One big concern that we should share. Can you? And a lot of people tell me that degrowth, de-urbanization, consumerist fashion, we are eating up everything. No, not at all, sir. Not at all. India needs development. Degrowth is not the issue. We don't have sufficient resources to feed our people. What are we talking about? The Westerners will come to us and tell us that degrowth is the answer. Let me tell you with conviction. That is a third world activist. Degrowth is not this thing. We need to consume a certain things of this thing. We need to have resources for that. We don't have the precious resources to consume. When you consume things, we need to do it in a responsible way. That's all. When you consume things, we need to do it in a sustainable way. That's it. Yeah. And what is the kind of present day architecture that gets manifested in gimmicks like this? This is an image which is, I'm very sure, which is very familiar to you. This is an aerial image, a kind of housing development that's happening in United Arab Emirates. It's called Palm Islands, Palm Jumeirah, Palm something, because it actually gets the shape of a palm. What is this palm-shaped housing development all about? Or reclaimed land, or reclaimed land of the sea. They're making these fancy shapes out of reclaimed land. Is it some kind of sustainable development? Or is it a gimmick? I want to leave you with a lot of open-ended questions. You should take this conversation forward. You share this concern and find out your own answers. Yeah. One residence that we have. I don't want to name the owner of this. Everybody knows about it. It's a 36-story building. And people now say that it's not being occupied because there are some vastu doshams or something in this building. 36-story building, home theaters for the people. Yeah. 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 You know, buildings have unfortunately have ceased to become expressions of, extensions of your simple living. Instead, they have become loud statements of power, of position in society, and things like that. But simple architecture was all about incremental growth, is all about organic growth. We started believing that every building has a soul, it is alive, and every little corner used to get into your dynamics, get into your mind. You have spaces which you could relate to. It's all about intricacy of relationship, the pleasure, the joy of living inside such premises. Have we lost it? This is another open-ended question that I want to leave with you. Yeah. It was all about the ecstasy of observation, the intimacy of relationships and things like that, isn't it? That is why, as no average Malayali still loves Vadaga Veedugal, people, even if you stay in a rental house, you start living it, you start loving it after a few years. You feel very bad, very sad when you start moving out of the rental premises. Malayalis have a psyche which even loves rental premises, rental spaces. Yeah. Let me come back to that. Once I come back to buildings as not a machine to live in. Houses not as a machine to live in, but as a living organism. Yeah. Yeah. Can we talk about responsible and ethical architecture? Yeah. You were seeing the little clip from a old Hollywood and Bollywood movie. Raj Kapoor, another lady under the umbrella. In fact, during my early days as a student, I used to read Amrita Preetham in a big way, the Punjabi writer Amrita Preetham in a big way. And one day somebody asked her, she was actually in a relationship with Sahir Lidwani, the lyric writer, and much later, she got attached to Imtiaz, a much younger Imtiaz. And a journalist asked him, what's the difference between Sahir Lidwani, the creative genius who wrote such beautiful lyrics for Hindi songs, and Imtiaz? She said, Amrita Preetham said, Sahir Lidwani is like the vast blue sky. His life is intense, seamless, without boundaries, beyond boundaries. But Imtiaz, I wanted a shade, I want a shelter. And that is, I want to stay under an umbrella. And that is why I left Sahir and went to Imtiaz. If you see a man with a white dhoti and a white shirt, still you look to him with such awe, such respect. White never goes out of style. Yeah. 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 Go ahead. Just a few minutes before I wind up. This was the premises on which we built up the tenets of simple architecture. Space, Agasham, Kala, that's time and energy. This was the basic premise of our own so-called vernacular architecture. This was the beauty of it. Space within a period, a limited time. That's what life is all about. We are here on this earth only for a small little period. And we imbibe a little space. That's what in Malayalam it's called a chimida, a small little space where we walk on this earth. Time, now and then, a small little time. And the energy force all out. Can we synchronize it into a living organism? That was what houses meant. That is what I continually talk about, houses with a soul. Houses, can we see it as a living organism? Can we talk about houses? Can we dream about houses that has a soul? The moment you realize, the moment you start thinking about that each wall that you're bringing, each kind of roofing system that you're putting up, this kind of spaces, when you start realizing that it is a soul and a kind of a life, you will never hurt it. You will never hurt it. You'll start loving the space more because it's got, when you start believing that it's got life, you will never hurt it. Can we get into those basic premises to save this Mother Earth? Yeah. Just look at this word, Sukhadarsham. What a beautiful word. Sukhadarsham is good for your eyes. Something like music is good for your ears. Something that's good for our eyes is Sukhadarsham. Indian architecture, Indian buildings, with pride, let me tell you, India's vernacular architecture was all about this. I'm not talking about Vastu for a minute. I'm talking about vernacular in a completely different paradigm, completely different context. But vernacular architecture of Kerala, vernacular architecture of India was all about this. It was all about functional utility. It's all about the wellness, the well-being, feel of well-being and things like that. This is what we have lost. Yeah. You go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, can you come back to this? As a young student, before I joined the course of architecture, I used to work, when I say an activist, as a student activist, I used to go to Kumaragam. Kumaragam was a vibrant village somewhere near Kottayam. It came to limelight because, when Vajpayee was the minister, prime minister, he went there and suddenly the colors, the tones of that village changed and became an international tourist destination. Before that, Kumaragam was such a vibrant village. I still remember the days as a school child when I used to go there to teach the older generations of people. There are a lot of people going to the lake, picking up the shells. There are a lot of people going and trying to slake it, burn it. There are a lot of people trying to cart it away in bullock carts. It talked about local capabilities, it talked about local employment. It talked about a very vibrant rural community. People with employment opportunities. People who were taking shells from the lake, they were poor people. Who were carting it, they were very, very poor people. Who were slaking it, burning it, they were poor people. Poor people, through lime industry, got a lot of livelihood opportunities. I don't want to talk about Kumaragam as you see it today. Kumaragam has just withered. It has just gone. It has withered. Withered. I mean, it is just gone. The fabric is completely torn. The men folk are making illicit, they are making illicit liquor. The women folk have gone into prostitution. The entire social fabric, such a vibrant rural social fabric, is completely torn. No takers for lime. For a minute, let me make this statement and then leave. Lime is nothing but, what is the difference between cement and lime? Both are the same things. Both are the same thing. Except for a few structural applications, both are the same things. Wrapped differently, spelled differently, understood differently. Lime is as strong, as durable as cement. In certain structural applications, probably like cement concreting, RCC, it may not have the kind of strength and kind of applications. But elsewhere, in many other applications, lime is much better. Nobody wants lime now. And the entire industry has fallen. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah. I don't want to dwell on this, but these are some questions that I just want to leave it with you. Just, do you consider the cultural sensitivity as a basic design determinant? Are traditional idioms relevant in modern times? Yes is my answer. You may not agree with me. Yes is my answer. Yeah. With these words, let me conclude because it might take more time. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Salutes to the organizers of this function. With these words, let me inaugurate the lecture series on sustainability, which is going to go a long way. All the best and keep the spirit flying. Thank you. Thank you very much.